right in the corner of Queensland at the moment. We've just been into a place called Haddon Corner, which is the corner of the Queensland border and the South Australian border, right next to each other. Just been reflecting on this trip. It's been a great trip for us. It's been something different for me. Growing up in southeast Queensland, all of my four-wheel driving was on the sand islands, so Stradbroke Island, Bribie Island, and a lot of time up on Fraser Island as well. We used to have a place up there at Rainbow Beach, and we'd regularly go for trips up to Fraser Island. So a lot of my four-wheel driving's been sand, and which is a little bit different to this sort of driving. So this has been outback driving, and out on what they call highways and roads that are really just tracks cut into the landscape. And it's been interesting. I know I'm going to give you some numbers of speeds and things like that we've been using, and I know speed and the speed that you travel at's a very personal thing, but I thought if I shared it with everybody, for those of you who haven't done it before, at least you'll have some sort of guideline. I've been driving pretty conservatively. I've got my kids in the car. I want to get home safely. I want to make sure my equipment is given the best opportunity to perform well and last a long time. So I've been driving conservatively, but on what you'd call the main tracks or the main roads, it's been quite easy to travel at 95, 100 kilometres an hour. I think we've been very lucky with our timing. Almost all the main tracks and roads that we've been on out here, including the old Strzelecki track, feel like they've been recently graded. The surface is very good. We do get corrugations, but I gotta say this. We rented a 200 series Land Cruiser for this trip, and I've got to say the factory suspension in this 200 series Land Cruiser is fantastic. At about 80 kilometres an hour, we're travelling about 90 at the moment on a track, and there are corrugations there. They're just little ones, but there are corrugations there. And we're doing 90 at the moment, but even at 80 kilometres an hour, it just sails across the top of them and you don't feel them at all. So that's been really good, and I think that's just an attribute of this car. So very lucky that we were able to get this type of car for this type of trip. But that said, any four-wheel drive with good up-to-date fresh suspension on it is going to have the same experience, right? The great thing about being here in Australia, all the suspension manufacturers are well aware of what our outback roads are like and make suspension to suit what we do out here. So these main tracks though, as I say, 95, 100, we've been able to do those kind of speeds very, very easily. The only thing I find is on the bigger tracks, particularly given I've got a 1.5 tonne trailer sitting on the back, when the surface starts to get a bit looser, you get a little bit more gravel on the top, or we come up to corners, I've been slowing down to 80. I think that's mostly about me and my confidence levels, but I like to know that when the surface is a bit looser or we're going to get around a corner, I want to make sure that I've got a little bit less speed and it's easy to wash off speed before I go through the corners. Something I learnt years ago, I used to do some tarmac rallying in the United States, very high speed tarmac rallying in Corvettes, and both Lexi and I did some driver training courses, and one of the things they taught us in that is that you should always brake in a straight line. So anybody who's ever done a defensive driving course, they would have taught you this too, but you want to get all your braking done in a straight line, because if you try and brake when you've been steering, you'll skid, because all the momentum for the vehicle wants to go straight ahead, and if you're trying to turn, the car's working against that momentum. So same thing out here on a dirt track. If you're going to wash speed off, do it when you're in a straight line, and then when you come to the corner, then you can carefully accelerate through the corner with full control of the vehicle. And that's been really relevant. That training's been really relevant for me out here. So I scrub speed off when I'm coming up to a corner. A lot of the corners out here in the bush are blind, although I would say that the dust trails that cars leave out here make it easy to spot oncoming traffic, but you can't always trust that. Earlier today we passed a motorcycle that didn't generate a lot of dust behind him. So another good tip is when you're coming to a corner, make sure you stay to the left, just in case somebody's coming around that corner that you can't see. 99 times out of 100, you're the only one out here, but the one time you don't guess it right could be a problem. So always stay to the left when you're doing a corner. And as I say, I scrub about 20 kilometres an hour off the speed when I'm going through a corner. So that's been on the major tracks. When we get onto the minor tracks, the ones that are a little bit more off the beaten track, like there was a 50 kilometres off the main road or the main track to get down to Haddon Corner, and that was what I call a minor track. That track certainly didn't sustain 90 to 100 kilometre speeds. I backed it off and we were travelling 70 to 80 along that track. The car could handle it really well. I could handle it really well with my experience in driving. I felt really comfortable driving the car at those speeds. And again, I just used the same technique, drop 15, 20 kilometres off the speed when I'm coming up to corners or if the surface starts to get really soft. So yeah, so I just thought I'd share just some of those thoughts, some of those experiences and learnings I've had over the years. I know some of you have done tons and tons of driving, heaps more than I've ever done out here. But also there's a lot of us that haven't done this before, so I just thought I'd share some of my learnings from this trip for those of you that haven't done something like this before and are wondering if you should do it. Definitely get out here and do it, no question. It's just magnificent to see what this country has to hold. But there's just a couple of tips on terms of driving out here and what sort of speeds work on the various surfaces. So cheers everyone.